I'm Tori, and today is day 2 of the 12 Days of Knitmas. And in this series, I show you 12 easy and customizable projects to make for yourself or someone special in your life using your circular knitting machine. And today's project is going to be a reversible messy bun or top knot or ponytail beanie. And yes, you may say, beanie, aren't beanies one of the easiest things you can make on a circular knitting machine? And the answer is yes. Well, it depends. You can make them as complicated as you want. But I had a number of requests for this particular style, and they're really popular right now. And honestly, I love them myself, and I know that others would love to get them as a gift. So we are going to take a look at this style today, and I'm going to walk you through the whole process from beginning to end. As I mentioned, this is day 2 in a 12-part series, so don't forget to subscribe for future content so you can see all the other projects and maybe get inspired by some of those gift ideas out there. So today's question of the day before we dive right in is, in the comments, let us know, what is your favorite circular knitting machine project? Mine right now is fingerless gloves. I will tell you, they work up really fast. You can do so many things with them. And here in my office, it gets really cold. So I like to wear them when I'm working on the computer or when I'm crafting. So that's mine, but let me know down in the comments what your favorite project is. So without further ado, let's dive right in. For today's video, we will be using the Centro 48 pin. And you can use Addy or any other machine that you want, but the 48 pin works really well for creating the right beanie size. We're also going to be using this on the tube setting. And then let's take a look at our supplies. So for the reversible style, I like to use 2 different yarns because I like to have some contrast and it makes it fun to reverse. You can also just use one singular color for the whole entire thing and it would be just as cute, but it is fun to have like that additional brim at the very bottom or be able to turn it inside out. So what I'm going to be using here is this Lion brand Pound of Love. I love this. I have this in so many different colors. It works really well with the Centro specifically, and the color is Fern. And then I'm also going to be using this fantastic, it's like wool and mohair, bulky yarn. I actually got this at a little tiny thrift store next to my house this weekend. And this is called Pine Shadows. So really cool. I actually already tested a little swatch to make sure because it is bulky. I tested it on my 48 pin and it worked just fine. So I'm going to be doing most of the beanie in this color. So one side will be this color. This will be the kind of accent color that will show up on the top. For this project, we're also going to be using waste yarn. I know a lot of you have told me that it's not something that you typically work with, but I will tell you it helps so much with finishing projects, especially with this one because we are going to be essentially having kind of a, the top of the beanie is going to be visible, so you want to make sure it's as clean as possible. So we need a little piece for the bottom, a little piece for the top, and then I also use a ravel cord on the bottom just to make it easy to remove. And if you aren't familiar with what I mean by ravel cord, let me know and I can do a quick video on that. Also, standard supplies that you'll need your scissors, of course. For this project, you can use a crochet hook, that's what I use, but you could also use a darning needle. So you can use one or the other depending, and I'll kind of show you when those kind of are interchangeable. Hair tie, hair elastic. This is what I use in mine, but you can also do 2 other methods. You can use something like this. This is called t-shirt yarn. So this t-shirt yarn is super stretchy and you can weave it through your darning needle and then you could actually put it around the top and pull it. It's a faster method. The problem that I find with this, if you are doing anything in like darker colors, guess what? You're gonna be able to probably see this right here through the yarn. So if it doesn't bother you, then this could be a really great solution. If you have some of this laying around, like maybe you were making, I don't know, masks a while back and you have a bunch of this is a good way to use that up as well. And then lastly, you can also just use the yarn and make yourself a drawstring. So I'll kind of call those out as we get to those steps. So let's go ahead and jump into the process of making the reversible messy bun beanie. All right, well, we're gonna start with our waste yarn and we're gonna cast on under that last pin. All right, And then we're gonna go, I think that I have this set up for about 5 rows of waste yarn. All right, now let me show you, I'll demonstrate the ravel cord for you. So the ravel cord essentially is 1 row of yarn, that's all it is, and another contrasting color from your fabric or from your working yarn. And what this is gonna allow us to do is at the end, we'll be able to pull off the waste yarn way, way easier. So you're just gonna go in the pin right next to it and then just go around 1 time. So you're back at that white pin. Excellent. Now we're ready to start with our working yarn. Now with this, you are going to have one side of your tail that you do want to be a little bit longer because that's the one that we're going to be using to attach the whatever method that you're going to use to give it the elastic top or the drawstring top. So this one's really thick. I'm not going to actually use this as the yarn that I'm going to attach it to, I don't think, but we'll see. So I'll just leave a little extra, no harm in doing that. Okay, let's hold those. Over. All right, now we are on the working yarn and I just added the first row here. We're gonna do a total of working yarn of 100 rows of working yarn. Now you can customize that however you want. If you want to break it up into stripes or different yarns that you want to use, it's a great project to use scrap yarn because you can have a really fun looking hat. I'm going to break it up into a 60-40 mix. And what that means is this, as I mentioned, this dark green wool, this is actually going to be the 40 mix. This is going to be the contrast that I have on the top of the beanie. And then the lighter is going to be, it's going to be solid on the inside. When you fold it up, that'll be on the brim as well. So we'll just begin and we'll do 40 rows of this yarn. And then I'm going to show you a really easy way to switch your yarns without getting a little step up in the yarn. So I'll meet you back here after 40 rows. Okay, so here we are. We're actually only at 38 rows and it may look a little weird. So I wanted to show you what happened. So this yarn, I had mentioned this in the beginning, it's a chunky, super bulky, chunky. They don't typically work well in the Centro 48 pin knitting machine. So I typically stay away from them, but I thrifted the yarn and it was awesome. So I decided to try it. I did do a swatch before I started and it was working up just fine. However, as I started going around, it was really hard and to crank, and then it was also dropping a ton of stitches. Not enough stitches that I wanted to stop using it, however, because I'm already invested in this color combination. So what I ended up doing is I was looking for something heavy in my kitchen. So I went and grabbed this little camping plate and then this all-clad lid, my husband's fancy lid to his cookware, and tried that, and it actually worked so well. So what I ended up doing, and this one's too heavy. I would recommend if you have a yarn that you just cannot not use and you want to keep going, you're in the middle of a project. This is not a 100% solution, but it definitely got me to the point where I am now at 38 rows. So if you pop it in there, and this is why it would be nice to have a little bit bigger lid as well as something not as heavy, but you can just pop it right here and it's all stretched now. But typically what it'll do, it'll sit on the yarn and pull it down enough so that it won't pop off. And I found that I was able to get to 38. It was a struggle. It was a struggle. I'm never using this yarn again on the knitting machine, but now I'm ready to change the yarn. And that's why I stopped at 38, because I just couldn't handle going really slow and having to monitor every single loop at this point. So we're gonna cut this and add the other yarn, but I mentioned to you I was gonna show you a tip for switching yarn so that you don't end up with like the step up. A lot of times that I've seen people switch yarn, all they do is they cut it or they tie it, which, that's fine, especially if it's going to be hidden on the inside or you don't care if it has the, kind of mismatched edges. But there's a really simple trick that I'm going to show you that you can help minimize that. So I'm just going to cut off. I don't need that much yarn here. So we're just going to, good riddance. I'm so happy to be done with this wool in the knitting machine.
Also, one other tip, full of great tips today, static guard, or hairspray. If you have hairspray, that's what I used to use way back in the day. But the static guard works well, especially if you're going really fast and you have the type of yarn that does get really staticky. This works wonders to prevent that. You can hear it when it gets staticky and then you start to get staticky. So I recommend having this available when you're working on your projects. So all you're going to do, you're just going to pop in, leave a little bit of a tail because we will tie these together. They'll be hidden on the inside of the hat, but you're going to pop in your yarn like you typically do, hold those two to give tension, and then put it in your tensioner. And again, I need to monitor this very closely because I had such problems with that original yarn. So I'm just going to go slowly, super slow, which is painful. All right, so we're back at that white pin. If you remember, we started the color, and you can actually see here, we started the color on this pin, and now we're back at this pin right here. So what we're actually gonna do is we're gonna take that new yarn color, and we're gonna put it behind the white pin and under the little hoop here. And then we're gonna take that yarn that was under, and we're gonna pull it directly under the hook there. And then we're just going to continue like normal. That's the only thing you have to do differently. And what it does is it gives it a much cleaner join, so you can't really tell where the yarn changed. So that's pretty awesome. All right, so now we're going to do 62 or 61 more rows because we did 38. So we're going to do 62 and we'll meet back when we're ready to cast off. And one more thing that you'll want to do is you do want to tie these two in just a light single knot. So just pull those. Once you're done, you're going to actually go on the inside and you're going to tighten it, because that you can control when you flip it to the right side. You can see what makes it look so that it doesn't have a hole, or that it looks like it doesn't have that weird little change in color. So definitely just make sure to put a light little knot here. Don't go too heavy, but we'll go back and do a double knot later on. Oh, and how smooth this Lion Brand yarn is compared to the other. Oh my gosh. All right, so now we are at 100 rows, and we are going to use waste yarn to cast off. And I'm actually going to leave a really long tail because, again, this is what I'm going to use, and this is what you'll use, whether you're going to use a needle to attach the elastic, if you're going to use a crochet hook. If you're going to be using elastic, you may not need this much, but it's actually you will, because we're going to finish the end of it. So let's just go ahead and take off. Let's see. You can always add yarn later, but I'm going to go around my machine twice. I think that should be enough yarn to finish this project. And again, if not, we just use a magic knot and we add more. And then with waste yarn, again, just pop that in. And then we'll go around about 5 times and keep cranking until it falls off the machine. Here, this is our finish. We have 100 rows. You can really see the difference in the chunky versus the light. It actually is going to make it easier to roll this up on the brim. So that'll be fine. I've stretched it, but I do want to show you, remember I told you about connecting the different yarns so you can't tell. Right now you can really tell that there is a difference here. So this is where we're going to come on the inside. And remember, we made a really light knot here. We're going to pull it, tighten it. You don't want to make it too tight because you don't want to have a little pucker there, but we're going to pull it a little tighter than that. And because it's 2 different weights, it is also going to be a little bit more noticeable, but there we go. And then we will double knot it, triple knot it if you want to. Put those in my yarn stash. And now take a look at this. Look, it's right here. I can feel the bump right here where my finger is. Look how clean that is. You can barely even, you can barely tell that there was a change in the yarn right here. And just in case you don't believe me, the knot's right here. There's my finger, and here we go. So just a little tip for you there. So now that we've stretched this out, what we're gonna do is we're gonna fold it in half. So inside of itself, essentially, probably be easier to do the lighter weight end inside. Okay, and then we want to make sure it's not twisted and align our little starting points together. So here we have our starting point. Here we have our starting point. We always start at the same needle. So if we line those up together, then we should have a pretty even project. Okay, now what our project is going to consist of is the next thing we're going to do is we're actually going to finish off, or we're going to finish, we are going to finish, but we're going to connect this whole top portion here. So my hand is going through here, and then we are going to finish off these sides, and we're going to connect them together, give it a really pretty edge. Now, if you were just using a not waste yarn and you were just cinching it, you could do that too. It just won't be as pretty. And of course, we want everything to be nice and clean. So what we're going to do is you can do this again with your yarn. You can take that tail, that really long tail that you had, and you can just weave it through yarn, 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 and weave it all the way through to connect it. You can do that, but I also prefer using a crochet needle just to connect them because I think it looks better. So that is what I'm going to do. And then once we have all of this stitched together or crocheted together, we'll come back and I'll show you how to add the actual elastic, drawstring, or other elastic. So on this end, I take one, pull it through. Over on this end, same thing, pull it through. And then see, it's giving you this nice little pretty finish right here. Once we remove that waste yarn, it'll look really clean. So that's definitely what we're looking for.
Now, when we remove the waste yarn, this is when that ravel cord comes into play. So just pull that single yarn strand out and then the rest will fall right off. And then of course the other you're gonna have to pull off manually, but it still goes pretty quickly because it was at the top.
Okay, now that we have finished the top, let's talk about different ways that you can actually finish the messy bun beanie. So number one, if you decide that you want to use any sort of like t-shirt elastic, this is super simple. You would just cut off probably about, I'm going to say 12 inches is probably good. You could actually make it a little bit longer if you want to make it easier to weave it through. You do need to make sure you leave enough for knots, and depending on how stretchy your elastic is, you need to make sure that you are allotting for that. Because you want it, you know, if you want it tighter, you need less, and if you want it loose, then you would have more. And what you would end up doing, and I'm not going to cut it off of because we're not going to do this method, but I do want to show it to you. Okay, don't need to do it that way. So you would just put that through your darning needle, and then these tails you actually would not end up using. These would just get tied off and tucked. And then you would take your elastic, and then under, right under your loops, you would just go in, out, and you would continue to do this just like this all the way around. And like I mentioned, you're going to be able to see this. So if you're doing a white beanie and you have white elastic, this works well. Or you know, this may not be the best choice depending on the color you use. Method number two, you can use a drawstring. You can make a drawstring. And this is great too, depending on if you have some days where you have a bigger pony or you have other days where you have less. It's, you know, a drawstring is a very, very cool option. And all you would do is you would take a piece of yarn and you could crochet a chain of like however many you need to get to probably about a foot or so, maybe 2 feet. Depending, you know, again, however big you want to have that knot. But you would create a crochet chain. And again, I don't want to do that with this because I'm going to be using this, but let's pretend this is a crochet chain that doesn't start here. Okay, so let's say we have this crochet chain. You would do the same thing that we just did with our elastic, and then you would do that, and then you would just weave it through. In, out, in, out, in, out, in, out. And then you would let me use my words, you would stop when you get back around to about here. And then that way, you wanna make sure that you have at least a stitch between them. And then that way you can take both of those and you can pull them as taut as you need them to be and tie them in a bow. And then you can just simply untie it when you are ready to take it off. So that is another method. The method that we're gonna do is actually the elastic method, because this method works well for my hair. I really like this method and I enjoy crocheting, so this works out really well. Again, you do not have to use a crochet hook for this. You could do the same method just by using your darning needle. So what you would do is you would take your yarn tail and your elastic, and then you would go through, make sure it's wrapped around, and you would put that yarn tail all the way around using the darning needle. But we are going to use our crochet hook today. All right, here we are in that first loop. Here we are with our elastic. And then we're gonna take it around, we're gonna yarn over and then pull through. Okay. And then you can add an additional crochet stitch, and then we're gonna go into the next hole. So through, make sure that you catch that elastic, yarn over, pull through, and then yarn over and pull through. And we're going to continue doing this all the way around. So we're going to find that. And if you're looking for, they're the same color. So since I have two different colored yarn tails, I can just easily see where each of those loops start. Make sure that the elastic is through. Pull the elastic, yarn over, and then single crochet. And you don't want to skip any. We do want to make sure that this is nice and secure. All right, and I'm going to keep doing that. We'll catch up here shortly. I want to show you once it starts to get tight, what you can do to help as you are connecting. So as you continue, you'll see this is what starts to happen. It looks really pretty, but you're like, okay, I still have all of this to do. How do I keep doing this? So what you'll end up doing is just pulling the elastic. So you'll just keep pulling it. Obviously you need to pull both sides. If you pull one, it's not gonna work, but it'll start to cinch up that yarn right there, and then you'll be able to do it. Now, when you get down to the end, yes, it's gonna be a lot harder, but just keep tugging on it, keep pulling on it, and you will make it through. Now we've made it all the way around, and you can tell, so here we are. You can still see that elastic there. So what we're gonna do to finish this off is we're actually going to do a slip stitch. Right, so just right into that first stitch, grab our yarn, pull through, and then pull through. And then we can cut that. And there we go. So now what we'll end up doing, perfect there, that's okay. So what we'll do is we will tuck, or we will weave these tails right here. Come a little bit shorter so that we can weave that. Okay. So here is the top of our beanie. We have that nice little stretch. We also have the color coming in from the brim here, which is pretty cool. But as I mentioned, it is reversible. So we could, if we wanted to, maybe you're having a day where you just wanted to be all green, you could just do that. And then you could fold this up as well. Now it's a little bit harder because this wool right here is definitely a lot thicker, so it may not lay as well this direction. But if you were going to be doing this, I would recommend using 2 of the same weight yarn. But I would just wear it this way anyway, and then I would roll this up like this, just like that.
So that's all there is to creating the perfect messy bun, ponytail, top knot, beanie reversible. There's so many cool things about this and so many different techniques you can use depending on whatever your skill level is, from beginning to more advanced. Get creative with this project. Like I said, add in different stripes and different colors. Make it bigger if you want to have more of a brim. You can make it smaller if you don't want to have a brim. So just get creative, play around, and make some really awesome gifts for those special people in your life, even if it is yourself. So that is it for the video today. Don't forget again to subscribe and like this video. We have 10 more days of Knitmas coming your way. I don't know what's next. So let me know in the comments what you want to see, and until next time, everybody, see ya!